Do you know what the hardest job in the world is? It's creating media out of existing IPs. We saw it with the Witcher TV series. Geez, they had a hard job. All they had to do was follow the books, follow the games, the existing stories. They had Henry Cavill, who people loved in the Witcher role, but they just couldn't do it. The writers, the creators, they had to insert themselves into the mix. Their own politics, their own agendas. And of course, audiences hated it. Tough crowd. They tried it again with Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power as well, and it was the same deal. You take a beloved IP, it's guaranteed to generate interest. I mean, look at Lord of the Rings Gollum. Would anyone have talked about that disaster if it wasn't Lord of the Rings? Probably not. It would have just disappeared into the ether. But with Rings of Power, they couldn't help themselves. They have to insert their own politics. They've got to insert their own little ideas. Oh, we can do so much better than Tolkien. We're 21st century writers. We've got social studies degrees. We'll put our own spin on it. It's going to be great. And of course, the general public didn't want a bar of it. It was a total failure. Who knows what's going to happen with it in the future? However, RoboCop Rogue City. That is an example of where the creators, they respected the source material. This game, it feels like RoboCop. And the game itself, it's quite solid as well. So the setting, the atmosphere, they get that right and they deliver on everything else too. And they've been rewarded for it. It's come out recently. It's got great reviews on Steam, 92% positive. And it's got nearly 500,000 players now, and that's purely on Steam. That's excluding console. If we add it all together, maybe it's somewhere around that million copies sold mark, which would be fantastic because this is not just some huge budget game. It's not a Baldur's Gate 3. It's not your AAA holiday Christmas release. It is a smaller scale product, but they've budgeted accordingly, and it's hopefully a big success. They deserve it. It is a very fun game. The way I describe it is kind of like an immersive sim light. It's not as in-depth as like a Deus Ex Human Revolution, that series, but it is more than just a first-person shooter. It's got those open hub worlds, like from Vampire Bloodlines, again Deus Ex, that are nice to explore. There's interesting side quests. It isn't just a matter of fetching things, killing enemies. You do have your skills. There is persuasion. You can approach situations a little bit differently. There's dialogue choices. There's multiple endings. It is around 15-20 hours. It's not a super long game, but it doesn't overstay its welcome. By the end, you are left somewhat wanting more, which is rare in an era where so many games are padded out so that they're 100 hours, so you can get executives like the Rockstar CEO, I believe it was, who said something ridiculous like games should be priced based on the number of hours you spend on them. Get the fuck out of here. It should be based on the hours of fun that you've had in the game. And RoboCop Rogue City, 15-20 hours, they're pretty much all fun. It's a good time. I'd play it again. I'd play a sequel. I'm confident this developer will deliver. They've done it twice now. They were responsible for a Terminator game that released a few years ago. Wasn't perfect, but it was a step in the right direction. And this one is even better. But everything was going against this game. I mentioned it's a niche title to some extent. The mainstream didn't really care about it. They didn't really want it to succeed. Reviewers, especially, they were out to shit on this game. They don't care about it. They just want to get their money from Xbox, from PlayStation, from the big publishers. They talked it down. Initial impressions were negative. The general public, they were all a little bit skeptical before this game released. It wasn't until it got into our hands that people realized, hey, this game's actually good. It's a fun time. 93% positive on Steam. The audience loves it. It's the reviewers. Now, I'm going to show you some examples. I mentioned firstly the source material, getting that right, and Rogue City gets that so right. It feels like RoboCop. So many games, movies, TV shows, they leech off the original IP. They suck it up, try and bring the old audience in, but then they cram all their own crap ideas in there, their ideologies, their politics, their own little stories. It doesn't work. People have had enough. And because Rogue City sticks to what made RoboCop great, it makes some people angry and upset. They say, oh no, it's got to be for modern audiences. You've got to be thinking about what's going on in politics in 2023. I will give you an example. This reviewer, Eurogamer, they review the game, they talk about the pros and cons, and then they just have to cram this in here. They cannot help themselves. The game's adherence to the structure and ideas of the original films also has some unfortunate ramifications. For example, the portrayal of Detroit Police Department as honest, hard-working, blue-collar workers struggling against budget constraints sits a lot less comfortably in 2023 when we know that US police budgets are vastly overinflated compared to other public sectors, and that issues like corruption and racism are endemic within policing in a way that has little to do with corporate ownership. What are you talking about? I'm not American. I live in Australia, so I do not care about this. I don't know whether it's true or if it's not true. What I do know is that it's this person's personal opinion. It's their politics, and they just can't help injecting that into their review where they're judging the game. Just stay out of it. Judge the game on its merits. Leave this for your personal time off the job. Just piss off. They go on to say, to be clear, not patronising at all this, I'm not saying RoboCop should be wandering around Detroit shouting ACAB. Rather, in its strive to mimic the anti-corporate satire of the film, Rogue City misses an opportunity to ask other, more pertinent questions. Like, how does a cop programmed to follow the letter of the law fit within a policing system that itself often doesn't? What does any of this have to do with a video game? Can the developer not just make the game they want to make, an escape, something outside the real world for us to get immersed in, enjoy a fictional setting? Apparently not. If you're not asking these tough, real-life questions, then you've utterly failed, according to this reviewer. And you can say, who cares, just don't read this. But it is a problem, because if we look at, say, the Metacritic score, it's sitting at a 72 here. And a 72, if we lived in a just world, 72 would be fine. It's around a 7 out of 10. It suggests it's better than average, which is true about Rogue City. It's better than average. It's very good. It's quite a good game. The problem is in video games, as we all know, we don't use the 1 to 10 scale effectively. The way it works is 10 out of 10, that's a classic. 9 out of 10, very good. 8 out of 10, yeah, pretty good, decent game. 7 out of 10, we're getting towards crap. Anything below that, unmitigated disaster. Do not play, do not touch, do not open your wallet. That is the sad reality. So when you get to a 72, yeah, it's not the end of the world. It's not worth losing too much sleep over, but it's a little frustrating because it is a middling score for the games industry. And it just feels like time and time again, mainstream reviewers, they look at a game like RoboCop, it comes from a small publisher, smaller dev, and they go, great, this is our chance to just shit on a game. Because when we review anything from a big publisher, we're too scared to give most games a middling score because, they might not invite us to the press events. They might not give us insider information so I can get the most of my blue tick on Twitter and leak a little bit, get some engagement, get those likes and comments. I'll be a nobody if I don't have my little reviewer job. That is the sad reality, and you just have to look at these scores. We're looking at the mixed ones right now, and there's a lot of them. There's more mixed and negative reviews than there are positive ones, which is sad because, again, the general public, 93%. We love it. It's purely these fools who give it a lower score. They're entitled to their opinion. It's just that they don't apply their opinion fairly across the board. They are absolutely biased because of corrupt reasons. Again, not wanting to give mainstream games negative scores out of fear. I'll give them some credit. More recently, say Redfall, no one tried to pretend that game is good. It seems like reviewers are not scared of Microsoft anymore. If it's Sony, if it's Nintendo, if it's EA, they do seem to be a little bit frightened. But Microsoft, who gives a shit? They just keep releasing duds. We don't have to pretend that they're any good. Also, Modern Warfare 3, that got really bad scores, but it's also part of the problem, because if you're giving Modern Warfare a 4 out of 10, you are saying this is almost a scam. In fact, there's those rumors that if you put the disc in your machine, it will launch Modern Warfare 2 instead of 3, because 3 was basically a DLC that they repackaged into a full game, sold it to you for full price. They were giving that a 4 out of 10, but that's a problem too, because if we look at some of these negative reviews, 4 out of 10, these reviewers are basically saying that RoboCop Rogue City is as bad as Modern Warfare 3. Can anyone with a straight face say that is true? I don't even think that these people could, but they're just happy to finally give a game a bad review because they never can. They've always got to suck up to these big publishers. Now, all that being said, is this worth getting mad over? At the end of the day, today is good news, because it's despite these reviews that the game has sold well, and audiences do love it. They haven't just followed the pack and said, no, it sucks, look what the reviewers are saying. No one cares what they think, people will judge for themselves. The issue is the casual fan. And these developers, they need the casual fan to buy these games to be able to make more of them. There's simply not enough hardcore-ish, I suppose, really engaged gamers doing research who can support these games and have enough money coming in. So you do need the casual fans going out spending money. They're the ones who will see the review scores and go, you know what, I'm not sure about it. And if you're not convinced, if we look at a review here, that is one of those 4 out of 10s. The sad thing is, like, if you look at what they're saying, the good, it's got a good RoboCop story, bridges the gap between 2 and 3, those movies, that's very true. Peter Weller, the original voice of RoboCop, he does a great job. Love this actor, I've seen him obviously in RoboCop, but other things as well. He's really good, he's a good director as well. Been in the film space a long time, so he's in the game, and yeah, does a lot of good things. They even admit this. Sure, they say there's some bad parts, like sometimes the combat's repetitive, not all the quests are good, and those things might be true. The game's not perfect, as I said, but that really shouldn't bring it down to a 4 based on how they review everything else. It should be at a 7 out of 10, an 8 out of 10. And then you've got this commenter who says, oh, this is a shame, I was looking forward to it. Oh well, back to discounts and bargain bins it is. So they're not buying it sounds like. And this is the end result. Gamers suffer because something like this doesn't sell well. It's hard to get new releases out in that series or similar lower budget titles that are still good, offer a good game experience. They're just not as polished. They don't have the same production values as a huge AAA game, a Cyberpunk or something like that. But I love these sorts of games, these mid-budget games, because often developers can get a bit more creative. They're not worried about needing to sell 5, 10 million copies, but they still need to sell reasonably well in this day and age for them to keep coming, and I want to see it happen. Again, I don't think this is bad news today. It's good news because Rogue City is a success despite what else has happened, despite some of the adversity from mainstream reviewers, from some of those impressions. The general public has spoken. They want more of this. They want fun games, fun media that sticks to the source material, doesn't try and pander to a group of people who are never going to buy it anyway. Thankfully, we've gotten it. Thankfully, it has sold well. Great job. I'm going to keep playing this, and I hope we do get more. So thanks so much for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.